Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Steinhoff. I'm the Agency Director for the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, or CARPC as we're called. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the third in the series of joint webinars hosted by CARPC and the Greater Madison MPO. We're excited to be able to make the work we do more accessible and useful through these webinars. Today, we will discuss our joint efforts to discuss regional development and transportation planning. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items to go over. The meeting is being recorded. Everyone is on mute. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Please put your questions in the Q&A. If it's a quick clarification on a slide, we'll answer a question during the presentation if possible. Otherwise, all the Q&As will be addressed at the end of the webinar, the end of the presentations, I should say. The presentation slide decks and a recording of this webinar will be available on each of our websites. I want to just also do a quick review of who is with us today, or I should say at least who registered. You see most of you are local government and county staff. Then we have even showing next from nonprofits, advocacy staff, and federal, state, other public agency staff. And then we see other members from consultants, interested members, businesses, and other groups as well. I will turn it over to Bill Schaefer now to give a little bit of background.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Yeah, Bill Schaefer, Planning Manager for the Greater Madison MPO. We wanted to start just by providing a brief history of regional planning in the county and explain our two agencies' planning, how our planning efforts are integrated. So this graphic shows the timeline of regional land use and transportation planning over the past almost 25 years. The last regional land use policy plan was adopted in 1997 when the MPO was the RPC. It was a combined land use and transportation plan. The MPO, which was separated from the RPC in 2000, has continued to prepare updates to the regional transportation plan every 5 years as required by federal law, most recently in 2017. During that time, the MPOs continued to coordinate with the RPC on and share population, household, and employment forecasts with transportation plans based strictly on local comprehensive plans in the absence of a guiding regional framework. The current planning effort is the first integrated regional planning process since that Vision 2020 plan back in 1997. So the current integrated regional planning effort that we're embarking on here really started with the 2016 Regional Values and Priorities Survey. That provided a foundation for the Greater Madison Vision growth scenario planning process and the current transportation plan by identifying important shared values, regional challenges, and growth and transportation strategies that enjoy widespread support. The Greater Madison Vision process form the basis for the goals and preferred growth strategy that are the foundation of CARPC's draft regional development framework that you'll hear about today. The draft growth scenario is based on local comprehensive plans, regional framework goals, and other regional plans. Connect Greater Madison, the current effort to update the regional transportation plan, will be based on the regional growth scenario and informed by other state and local planning efforts such as Metro's transit network redesign study. The Regional Development Framework and Connect Greater Madison plan are integrated in two key ways. First, through shared and complementary goals, policies, and a vision for the region. Second, through the shared forecasts and preferred growth scenario. The growth scenario was guided by the agency's shared and complementary goals and will also serve as the basis for the Connect Greater Madison plan. So this slide shows those shared and complementary goals. While the terminology that the two agencies use in some cases differ, the goals address the same common themes you see in the middle there. accessibility, livability, economic prosperity, equity, sustainability, resilience, efficiency, and preservation. Both agencies also have supporting objectives or policies for these goals. The MPO will be revisiting its goals and policies through our Connect Greater Madison planning process, but don't envision major revisions to those goals. So with that background, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve to give a brief overview about CARPC and the Regional Development Framework.
Thanks, Bill, and sorry for the jumping back and forth on the slides a little bit. CARPC is one of 9 regional planning commissions in Wisconsin. Local governments in Dane County recognize the need for an organization through which they can take on issues that require regional cooperation. This purpose is reflected in our mission, which emphasizes planning, collaboration, and assistance, and in our vision, which emphasizes working together to solve regional challenges. As you can see from the map, CARPC's region is Dane County. CARPC is governed by a 13-member commission appointed by the Mayor of Madison, the Dane County Executive, the Dane County Towns Association, and the Dane County Cities and Villages Association. CARPC focuses on regional land use and water quality planning. Wisconsin regional planning statutes charge RPCs with preparing an advisory plan to guide the physical development of the region. And in addition to that work under contract with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, CARPC administers the Water Quality Management Planning Program. It's kind of a mouthful in the region, which is falls under the Federal Clean Water Act. We also conduct other planning work. For example, we're currently facilitating a green infrastructure planning effort for the Black Earth Creek watershed. And we provide a range of planning and data assistance, such as helping communities with comprehensive plan updates and other planning work. Things we do not do is regulate land use, establish ordinances, issue permits, conduct other types of regional planning. However, we do partner with other regional entities to coordinate overall regional planning, and you'll hear more about that today. So with that, I am going to jump into talking about the Regional Development Framework. I'm going to give some more of the background part of this, and then I will turn it over to Sean Higgins for a while to tell you more about the specifics of the framework. Planning for the future is about identifying the decisions we make in the short run that will help determine what kind of future we will have. The Regional Development Framework lays the foundation to support continuing growth by identifying opportunities and mapping realistic planning concepts so that we can realize our potential as a region. I mentioned previously that communities create RPCs to address regional challenges. This involves seeing each community as part of something bigger. Well, each community is unique. We can combine our unique community assets to form a strong region. The bottom line is that when we work together, we can strengthen the region economically, we can improve our quality of life, and we can better protect natural and agricultural resources. The key challenge that we do face that we need to work together on is regional growth, population growth, and development. Over the next 3 decades, we can expect about 200,000 more people in Dane County, close to about 100,000 more workers. The Regional Development Framework is about laying out strategies for where people live, work, and travel as the region grows. Bill Schaefer mentioned the Greater Madison Vision work that laid the groundwork for the Regional Development Framework. So we began to take this growth challenge on about 5 years ago through this initiative. About 50 leaders from the public and private sectors formed a steering committee. They put their heads together to chart a course towards a shared vision and plan for how we grow. Facilitated by CARPC, this initiative engaged groups and people across the region to explore possible futures and set priorities. More than 9,000 people who were broadly representative of the region completed a survey in late 2018. The survey asked people to explore alternative futures and to share their priorities for future growth. The survey revealed that people's top priorities were climate change, access to opportunities, and conservation, in sort of the broad themes. More specifically, people want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change and become more resilient to the increased risk of flooding caused by climate change. People wanted to see greater access to opportunities like jobs and services for all people, especially as it relates to growth, by expanding housing choices to ensure housing affordability for all, and by creating a robust regional transit system for Madison and adjacent communities. People said they want to conserve our natural, agricultural, and fiscal resources. And by conserving fiscal resources means being wise about how we use our tax dollars for infrastructure like roads and utilities. The regional development framework, through this, CARPC applied those priorities and the regional goals towards the challenge of how we grow and to prepare this regional development framework. The framework is meant to be a guide for local and regional planning. Part of preparing the framework was to create a 2050 growth scenario that Bill mentioned briefly in his introductory remarks. The 2050 scenario places people and jobs across the region to meet the 2050 growth projections, those 200,000 people I mentioned. The scenario follows local community plans. It aims to achieve regional priorities and goals, and it draws from lessons learned from other regional planning efforts across the country. In so doing, it applies 6 growth strategies. Next, Sean will tell us about those strategies.
Thanks, Steve. Welcome, everybody. The regional development framework consists of various goals and objectives, and in many cases, multiple objectives or goals can be realized in whole or in part through encouraging physical development that utilizes a few key strategies. So I'm going to briefly lay these out for you. The first of these strategies is to focus growth in centers and along corridors. Centers are vibrant places where people can live, work, shop, be entertained, and meet and connect with others. They're welcoming places for all people, places that foster innovation. Corridors connect centers. They provide a variety of ways to travel, including walking, biking, and wherever possible, mass transit. They offer, at least along some stretches, similar combinations of activities that are found in the centers. Centers and corridors are found at a range of scales. There's the Metro Center, which serves as a central government, business, and cultural hub for the entire region. Regional centers, which draw people from multiple communities throughout the region, and community centers, which draw people largely from their community. Not shown on this map because of the regional scale are neighborhood centers, which draw from different parts of communities. This map shows where centers currently exist and where they could exist with careful attention to planning and development. The regional development framework locates about 40% of all growth within centers and corridors. Concentrating growth in this manner, accomplishes several things. One outcome is reducing car travel and its associated emissions. Centers connected by transit corridors can further reduce car travel. Centers and corridors can increase access to jobs, resources, personal needs by bringing those all closer together. And decreasing the distance between destinations and clustering destinations together can also result in better mass transit service. Mixed housing types within centers and along corridors improve housing choice in the region and can reduce people's transportation and utility costs through compact development. The second regional development strategy is to prioritize growth in already developed areas. This strategy complements the preceding strategy because many centers and corridors are or will be in the already developed areas and helps to achieve many of the same goals. This strategy helps conserve taxpayer funds by making better use of existing infrastructure like roads and pipes. Like developing in centers and corridors, it reduces pressure to develop farmland and natural areas. The gray areas on this map are those already developed areas. Those developed areas with urban uses. Highlighted in pink in the map are the areas where high concentrations of new development are projected to occur in the 2050 growth scenario. A common example of future development in these areas might be replacing aged strip malls with taller buildings for housing and businesses. 4 out of 10 new households and 1 out of every 4 new jobs are projected within already developed areas. Now, as the population grows, more good jobs and wealth-generating businesses are needed. Suitable sites are needed to accommodate this business growth. The third strategy I'd like to outline is planning areas for business growth. Certain industries that we have concentrated in the greater Madison region offer higher wages and strong career pathways, as well as import dollars from outside of the region that support other industries. Some examples include information and communication technology, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and biotechnology. The areas illustrated on this map have high concentrations of office, industrial, and medical employment in the 2050 scenario. The fourth strategy is to plan new residential areas according to the principles of traditional neighborhoods. Traditional neighborhoods include a mixture of housing types, walkable streets, parks and civic spaces, and shopping and services. With careful planning, the areas illustrated on the map could meet these standards. Suitable locations coincide with greenfield development areas on the outskirts of communities because design of these types of neighborhoods start with the size and placement of streets, the size of neighborhood blocks, and the proximity of non-residential to residential development. These are all things that are difficult to accomplish in existing developed areas. These types of neighborhoods provide a wider range of housing options, provide walking and biking options, and transit in some cases. They're more compact than conventional subdivisions, which consist almost exclusively of large lot, single-family housing. Thus, they reduce pressure to develop farmland and natural areas. They're a little bit more compact. In addition, they can foster community through their walkable streets and placement of neighborhood parks. Our computer modeling of the 2050 development scenarios utilized Urban Footprint, an online scenario planning tool. City of Madison, CARPC, and MPO staff collaborated and consulted local planners about their comprehensive plans to develop this model. Using the three strategies I just covered, Urban Footprint modeling projects around a 9% total reduction in average household transportation and utility costs, and about a 7% reduction in average household CO2 emissions. The regional development strategies I've just covered focus on where to grow. The remaining strategies highlight where to minimize growth and why. We've identified 2 such locations here: resource protection areas and resource stewardship areas. Shown on this map are the resource protection areas. Those are places where current regulation would prohibit development. And we also have some other important natural resources here. The map shows concentrated areas of future development. Examples of areas in resource protection include bodies of water, wetlands, floodplains, shoreland buffer strips, steep wooded slopes, and parkland. In already urbanized areas, you might know these as environmental corridors. Natural resources are also found in areas that are not legally protected from development, but that still provide important benefits to the region. We've called these areas stewardship areas because preserving their benefits requires stewardship amongst landowners and communities. These areas include potentially restorable wetlands, which can reduce the risk of flooding and increase climate resiliency, high quality woodlands, which increase carbon sequestration and enhance quality of life for residents. And lastly, the 500-year flood zone, areas with a 0.2% annual risk of flooding. The final strategy is minimizing where and whenever possible development of farmland preservation areas and to coordinate development within farmland transition areas at the local level. Farmland preservation areas shown here very generally are those areas designated in town and county farmland preservation plans. Such areas include agricultural enterprise areas and are typically characterized by sizable tracts of contiguous farmland and or high quality soils. These areas are generally outside of agricultural transition areas, which are located at the edges of cities and villages. By minimizing development in resource and farmland areas and concentrating it instead along corridors and within centers, we're able to grow more efficiently. The 5-year average from 1990 through 2015 was around 4,700 acres consumed for urban development. The 2050 scenario, by contrast, consumes about 1,300 acres for urban development. Now, this growth scenario, as you can see from the graph, continues the recent trend towards less and less land use for urban development.
Great.
We can check with this, Steve.
Thank you, Sean. The growth scenario that Sean described shows what we can accomplish together by applying common regional development strategies. Local communities, private sector partners, and other regional entities are the ones that can make this framework happen. Local government officials and residents play a primary role in implementation. A key method will be through updates to local comprehensive plans. During the update process, when putting together plans and policies for future development, in other words, where and how to grow, communities can apply the regional strategies and consider the 2050 growth scenario. Another way communities can implement the framework is to prepare more detailed area and neighborhood plans that reflect this framework strategies. In addition, communities will undoubtedly learn from each other additional methods of applying the framework. The private sector, of course, is also key to implementing the regional development framework. Developers, builders, lenders, realtors, they together plan, finance, develop, build, sell most new development. Of course, development must be viable in the marketplace or it can't contribute to regional goals. Key will be community members working with private sector partners to apply the strategies that both meet goals and succeed in the market. CARPC can assist in a number of ways. We can help communities with future development planning by facilitating dialogue and information sharing across communities about the successes and challenges that they are facing in applying the regional strategies. We can help through apply the framework through the urban service area amendment process and by tracking development data and reporting on progress towards goals. Well, we can make big strides towards our shared goals through coordinated regional strategies. Physical development alone will not get us all the way to our shared goals. For example, the regional development framework expands the type of housing types and choices, but that doesn't ensure that everybody will be able to afford that range of housing options. Other strategies are needed to ensure safe, decent, and affordable housing for all. Dane County's regional housing strategy, which will follow the development framework, will explore such housing strategies. Similarly, the slides are in a somewhat different order than I expected. So similarly, transportation also plays critical roles. For example, you saw that the 2050 growth scenario will reduce average household greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, but it still increases total transportation greenhouse gas emissions overall, which falls short of Dane County's climate action plan targets. Transportation infrastructure and policies will need to close that gap, for example, with better options than driving alone. The MPO's regional transportation plan update will explore those options, which you'll hear about next. So this concludes our regional development framework presentation. We would love to share this information with you and your community or with your organization and hear your thoughts. Please contact me to schedule a presentation or a meeting. For updates and information, please check out our webpage, subscribe to our newsletter, and follow us on Facebook. I will post my contact information and links in the chat. And now I will turn it over to Bill.
And Steve, there was one question that I think we can answer now. It was a quick question that popped up during Sean's presentation in the Q&A, which I think he might have shown, but it was, do you have a map that shows the projected growth areas overlaid by our local and county parks and public lands? And that was maybe the resource protection and stewardship areas map?
Correct. That was the map that showed the pink growth areas overlaid by the natural resource protection and the stewardship areas.
Great, thank you.
Okay, hi again, everyone. I want to just start by providing some brief background on the Greater Madison MPO for anyone that may not be familiar with us. As the designated Metropolitan Planning Organization, we lead the collaborative regional transportation planning process with the adopted mission and vision that you see here. This map shows the official planning boundary for the MPO, but we obviously must account for travel in and out of the metro area as well as within the area. The MPO is governed by a 14-member policy board with representation as shown here. The MPO coordinates with federal and state agencies and county and local governments to ensure development of a coordinated, connected regional transportation system that is consistent with the shared regional goals previously identified and supporting policies, recommendations, and strategies outlined in our regional transportation plan. This graphic highlights the MPO's primary responsibilities. In addition to providing a forum for regional transportation decision-making and preparing the regional transportation plan, these responsibilities include leading or supporting other special plans and studies and approving federal funding for projects through adoption of the Transportation Improvement Program. Finally, the MPO also manages a program to promote sustainable transportation options. The MPO is strictly a planning and funding agency and does not design and construct projects or operate transit services. So what is the Regional Transportation Plan? It's a framework plan that covers all modes of transportation. It sets guiding policy and identifies future projects, studies, and strategies to be implemented. Project recommendations are then refined further through corridor or mode-specific, or in some cases, topic-specific plans and project design studies. This plan will build upon the recent and ongoing MPO, State Department of Transportation, and local plans and studies such as Metro's Bus Rapid Transit Project and the Metro's Network Design Study. Federal rules require the plan to be financially constrained. So while all desired projects may be identified as part of our planning process, only those projects reasonably likely to have future funding can be included in the official plan. In other words, it can't simply be a wish list of projects. As noted, the plan will be designed to support the regional development framework and preferred growth scenario built from local plans. This graphic shows the general plan development steps, public engagement opportunities on the bottom, and the general schedule. So we're currently in the phase 1 of the plan process, highlighted with the bold outline. This summer, fall, we'll be developing and evaluating projects and strategies, and we anticipate completing a draft plan early next year with adoption in the spring. Current public input activities include an online survey, some targeted focus groups, the meeting today, and a public meeting next Thursday at 5:30, along with additional meetings further in the process and an opportunity to comment on interactive maps going forward. So what's new since the last plan, which wasn't adopted that long ago, 2017? The short answer is a lot. A number of communities, including the city of Madison, have completed updates to their comprehensive plans. We have much higher new growth projections and a new countywide growth scenario developed as part of the regional development framework that was just discussed. The MPO also has a new improved travel forecast model built using data from a comprehensive household travel survey, the first one conducted since 2001. We also have new major regional projects in the works, including bus rapid transit and the Beltline flex lanes. Metro is in the process of redesigning the bus network to better serve residents and complement the BRT service plan. And of course, there's the pandemic, which may have lasting effects on travel, introducing a new travel mode, virtual transportation. Here again are our current plan goals. We will be revisiting these and making any needed refinements to ensure that they fully and properly address desired outcomes for the future of transportation in our region. The following are some transportation trends and some critical issues that need to be considered and addressed in our plan. Over 60% of jobs in the county are located in the city of Madison, resulting in an influx of commuters from other municipalities in the county. Around 1/3 to 1/2 of workers in communities across the county work in Madison, with many more commuting to adjacent suburbs with large employment bases, such as Middleton, Verona, Fitchburg, and Sun Prairie. The county is also a net importer of workers. There are an estimated 43,000 workers commuting into the county, a number that has been growing rapidly and is expected to continue to increase. An estimated 71% of resident county workers drive alone to work. The percentage is 10% less, 61% for City of Madison workers due to higher percentages of transit, bicycle, and walk trips. Work trip mode shares haven't changed much over the last 20+ years. When looking at all weekday trips, rather than just work trips, transit mode share is smaller and multi-occupant vehicle trips are much higher due to 2 or more persons from the same household making those trips. The pie chart on the left shows mode share for trips by central Madison area residents versus all county residents on the right. The percentage of their trips by transit, bicycling, and walking is much higher, particularly for walk trips, which are almost 3 times for the county as a whole. Though not shown, their trips are also significantly shorter on average. The graph on the left shows the trend in daily vehicle miles of travel, or VMT. There was a dip in VMT during the recession in 2008-2009, but it has generally been increasing between 1% and 2% per year. While no one knows exactly how emerging technologies and various trends will play out and impact our travel, these are some of the key drivers of change that we need to consider and begin planning for. Connected driverless electric vehicles, other transportation infrastructure and communications technologies, shared mobility, which includes ride-hailing or car-sharing services and bike and scooter sharing, an increase in online shopping, and a potential long-term increase in teleworking in the aftermath of the pandemic. One of the most critical issues we need to consider and directly and very transparently address in our transportation planning process is ensuring a more equitable system that overcomes historical racial disparities supported by past public and private policies and investments. This map shows our designated environmental justice, or EJ, areas with high and above average concentrations of minority and low income persons. Many of these EJ areas correspond to historic so-called red line maps, as well as to gaps in the current sidewalk and all ages and abilities bicycle facility networks. A second critical issue is the ever-increasing threats posed by climate change. Addressing it from a transportation standpoint includes 2 things. Number 1, reducing transportation's impact on climate change going forward. And number 2, preparing and adapting the transportation system to withstand changing weather conditions, including more extreme weather events. I am now going to turn it over to Colleen Hosley from our staff to review some information on the current transportation system.
Thank you, Bill. In the upper right is a map of the regional roadway system showing the relative average daily traffic volumes. The regional roadway system includes over 1,800 centerline miles divided relatively equally in terms of jurisdiction between the state, county, and local governments. Traffic congestion is not widespread, but it is certainly an issue on some roadways and in certain locations, particularly on radial arterials leading to the downtown campus area and in Beltline and the County Highway MK corridors due to our geography, which funnels traffic onto a smaller number of corridors. This map shows 2019 weekday morning peak period traffic congestion on arterial roadways as measured by peak period travel speeds compared to other times of the day. The map on the right shows bridge and pavement conditions on the regional roadway system. According to data from 2019 and 2020, about 63% of the regional roadway system has pavement rated in good to excellent condition, compared to 9% in poor or very poor condition. Overall, pavement conditions have not changed much since 2013. The condition of state highways is better than that for county and local roadways on the regional system. 49% of bridges in the metro area are in good condition, with 8% in poor condition. However, based on bridge deck area, only 2% is in poor condition. The safety of all roadway users is a top priority. Traffic fatalities have generally decreased over the years. However, in 2020 was one of the deadliest years on Dane County roads in recent history, despite a significant drop in vehicle traffic and overall crashes as a result of the pandemic. Serious injuries as a result of a traffic crash have continued to rise in recent years. Vulnerable roadway users, including bicyclists and pedestrians, continue to make up a disproportionate share of roadway fatalities and serious injuries. The City of Madison has recently launched an initiative to achieve 0 deaths and serious injuries on roadways, and surrounding communities are starting to place a greater emphasis on improving roadway safety for all users. This map shows the current weekday, all-day, and peak period only bus routes and service areas. All-day routes are in red and peak only in blue, with peak only service in the lighter tan color. Stoughton and Sun Prairie also have shared ride taxi systems. Sun Prairie is considering moving to a local bus route system to replace the shared ride taxis. As previously mentioned, a Metro bus network redesign study is currently underway. Implementation of the recommendations that come out of that study is anticipated in late summer 2022. Metro Transit ridership peaked in 2014 and declined for 3 years before rebounding somewhat in 2018-2019 prior to the pandemic. The map shows the percentage of jobs that can be reached by transit within 45 minutes during the weekday morning peak period. That percentage drops off significantly outside the central area due to the lack of fast, frequent service extending beyond the current bus transfer points. That will change with the planned bus rapid transit or BRT system, which was recently recommended by the Federal Transit Administration for federal funding. While the initial roadway improvements and stations will be in the east-west corridor, the service plan calls for 2 additional routes, including BRT buses, a north-south route, and a route between Middleton and downtown, providing even more frequent service in the campus East Isthmus area where the routes overlap. The new BRT system is a truly transformational project for the Madison area. The schedule calls for BRT to be in service by 2024. Intercity bus service connects Madison with Milwaukee, Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Janesville, Beloit, Rockford, Dubuque, Green Bay, Appleton, and other communities in between. The city of Madison is planning a new mixed-use development with a reconstructed Lake Street parking ramp that will include an intercity bus terminal. This map shows urban regional roadways, excluding freeways and expressways, that have sidewalk on both sides, shown in green, on just one side, shown in yellow, or no sidewalk, which are shown in red. 25% of the urban regional roadway network has no sidewalks. This map shows the current designated regional bicycle network categorized by the level of traffic stress, with low stress routes in light or dark green. The focus of efforts now is on building out and connecting the low stress network while removing high stress segments and on arterials where a low stress facility isn't possible. In 2019, 52% of the regional network was categorized as low stress, while 27% was categorized as high stress. The percentage of the network that is low stress has been slowly but steadily increasing. This map shows the regional truck routes categorized by truck volumes, which are heavily concentrated on the interstate, Beltline, and other US highways. Around 30% of the daily traffic on Interstate 3990 is trucks. An estimated $25 billion worth of freight was shipped in the county in 2019, with 90% of that being transported by truck. Moving on to other public involvement activities. We have developed a project website to keep you informed with the latest project information and upcoming public involvement opportunities. Be sure to check out features such as the map dashboard and sign up for project updates. You'll see the website is listed on this slide, and down below in chat, there's also a link that you can click to take you to that website. We took a new approach with the planning process by partnering with local organizations to host and facilitate focus groups with traditionally underrepresented communities to gather feedback that we may not otherwise receive from the public survey and public meetings. So far, we have partnered with the Bayview Foundation to talk with residents of their affordable housing development, the Latino Academy of Workforce Development to talk with their students and members of their Leadership Academy, and the City of Sun Prairie to speak with contacts from their Neighborhood Navigators program. We have heard a lot of feedback about the high cost of transportation related to both car ownership and public transit, and connectivity and efficiency issues associated with public transit, and the negative impacts of these transportation issues on people's personal independence and ability to engage fully with family and community. Our regional survey is now available through July 9th, both in English and in Spanish. This is a great tool for us to gather broad public feedback on key transportation topics, to understand top concerns, priorities, and opportunities. We encourage you to fill out the survey and promote widely within your networks. We are regularly posting about these engagement opportunities on Facebook, so it's easy to share a post, and all of these links are available on our project website. And with that, I believe we are ready to open it up to questions from our attendees. I think we have a couple questions that we can answer now as we're working on that. If you have any questions that have come up, make sure to put that in the question and answer box below, and we will be answering those live now.
I did see.
So,
Oh, sorry, Zia. I did see a question related to whether there was a plan for commuter transit for people to live outside Madison, particularly from satellite communities. Our current plan does identify commuter bus routes that could serve those communities. And I think with the development of the BRT system, there'll be even more opportunities for connecting service from those communities to the Madison area. We did not mention rail assets, and that is a good point. We see, our current plan certainly calls for preserving those rail corridors for potential future commuter rail service, but we see that, if anything, more on the end time frame. The second half of our time frame. I think the current focus is on the bus rapid transit system, and then potential future extensions of that, and then providing bus service from those communities. But there certainly is a potential in the longer term for commuter rail service. Another question was related to free fare transit, and that is something that the city of Madison recently looked at and considered, and has decided not to pursue that at this time for a variety of reasons, including the fact that it would create a huge budget hole, and there also are many people, a vast majority of people that use pass programs now to access the bus system. So I think the approach is going to be to expand the low-income fare program, and address the affordability of transit through that program rather than a free fare program. Another question: the city is including a travel demand management program. They're developing that and looking at, and sounds like may be considered as well as part of their land use development decisions. Will this be encouraged in other communities? I would say the short answer is yes. That certainly is something that we want to see encouraged, promoted, and that is part of what we'll be doing with our TDM program going forward, is providing resources to communities to implement those sorts of programs.
So we have about 10 minutes left, so feel free to add additional questions into the Q&A. And I'll direct everyone's attention also to, if you open the Q&A window in the bottom of your screen and you click on the answered portion of the Q&A, you'll see the questions that have been answered. And there was one from Bill Connors about whether there's a document that contains the maps that in the slides that CARPC showed earlier. And you'll see that Sean provided his contact information. They are creating those maps, and so there will be opportunities to see those, and maps that you can zoom in more. And so if you're interested in anything specific related to that, you can reach out to Sean at his contact information there.
And Zia, hi, this is Steve. Maybe I'll add on to that a little bit in terms of where we're at in the process. We don't have a report generated yet for the regional development framework. We've created this materials for public discussion, and we're in the outreach and engagement phase. So that's why I encouraged everyone to contact us if you're interested in talking to us or having a presentation with us about that. And as we get that feedback and we make refinements based on that, we will be looking to put together a draft regional development framework document later in the year.
Great, and oh, I was just gonna say, we have a question about where and when will this presentation be posted? And so I think within the next week, this would be posted and it'll be available on both the Capital Area Regional Plan Commission website as well as the MPO website. So there will be a link on the homepage of the MPO site.
And I was just going to say from on the transportation side, in terms of the question related to availability of the maps and the slides, we do have on our website a data dashboard that has a number of maps, some of them interactive that you can zoom in to smaller areas, others that are PDFs, but still allow you to zoom in to get more detail. And that is something that we'll have more of going forward as we develop the plan. The maps that we have now are primarily, background, current, information on the current transportation system.
Thanks. And Bill, would you be able to answer the next question from Don, which is how much is or can an equity lens be used in transit development to provide services to those most in need and with a lack of other options?
Yeah, I mean, certainly that is, equity has been a major consideration for the network redesign, ensuring a high level of service in particular to areas, neighborhoods that have higher concentrations of low income, minority, and more transit dependent populations. So that has been one of the main criteria that has been used to and will be used to develop the final recommendations. And it's certainly a key part of our planning as well, is identifying investments that can be made from a transit, pedestrian, bicycle standpoint in particular, to improve accessibility of those areas. So yeah, it's and we have that data. We're also, as Zia mentioned, talking to some of these folks to see what their issues, concerns, challenges are, because that also, in addition to the data that we have, I think hearing those stories, those personal stories and challenges, it really helps us as well to paint, to provide those, to hear those stories and to supplement what we have in terms of data.
Great. And then we had a question about will the BRT buses be electric or hybrid diesel?
Most of the BRT buses will be electric. I think the buses used in the Middleton to downtown route, if I'm not mistaken, will not be, but most of the BRT buses will be electric. And car crashes, car deer crashes. I see a question related to that. We haven't typically. It's just something that's very difficult to address from a planning standpoint. So typically when we're doing crash analysis, we exclude those crashes because of the randomness and the difficulty of addressing. I'm sure from a state highway standpoint in particular, there may be strategies for trying to prevent deer from crossing freeways, but it's difficult.
And I'll add on to that, Bill, as well. There is a group that meets quarterly called the Dane County Traffic Safety Commission that discusses traffic safety throughout the county and looks at all of these different trends. Typically with car deer crashes, we don't see those escalating to the higher level injuries. And we're really trying to focus on minimizing and reducing the fatal and serious injury crashes. However, we do know that, especially in terms of motorcycle crashes, that's when it's a lot more serious when it comes to deer crashes. And at the statewide level, there are work groups that are looking into that.
Okay, and there was a question about, again, where will these slides be posted? And there are links posted in the chat, as well as links that I just dropped in the Q&A. And so those are some of the key links. So the first one is CARPC's Regional Development Framework page, which is part of CARPC's website. Then the link to the MPO homepage, where we will post links to things like this. As well as the MPO RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan website. And that RTP website will have all of the information about public engagement opportunities, past public meeting recordings, the survey link, all of that. But then also the last link there is directly to the Regional Transportation Plan survey. So definitely encourage everyone to take that survey.
And Mike Checkfalla from City Transportation confirmed that I was correct about the BRT buses, that the east-west and north-south service will be on electric buses, and the Middleton to downtown is the only route that would not be using electric buses.
Well, and we don't have any more questions and we're right at time. So Bill or Steve, do you guys have any final words before we sign off?
I'll just say I appreciate everyone joining in to hear about our planning efforts. CARPC is obviously they're a lot further along in their process than we are, but stay tuned for more information. There'll be more opportunities for input as we develop those projects and strategies over the summer, fall, and please do fill out that survey. We do have that, as was mentioned, an additional public involvement meeting next Thursday at 5:30. That's also a 1-hour virtual meeting, so it'll be a little more detail in that on the transportation side.
And I'll just jump in, echo Bill's thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and I hope to talk to more of you soon about the Regional Development Framework. And I will just quickly add that if you're not doing anything between 5 and 7 o'clock today, CARPC is hosting a ice cream social event at the Tenney Park Pavilion. That's just near the tennis courts, and you are all invited to attend. There will be free ice cream provided by Chocolate Shop, and it's just a way to say thank you to everybody for the work that you do and to celebrate the work that the region does as a whole, and just a general celebration that we're emerging from the pandemic. So great to see you there as well.
Thanks, everyone.